Hello, Bulldog fans from Reynolds Razorback Stadium, where Mississippi State, not as dramatic as 2 years ago, Steve, and again, not as cold as it was 2 years ago, but the Bulldogs for a while had a real chill on their warm weather bowl plans. Thankfully, the offense decided to get hot at the right time. Nick Fitzgerald throws a couple of fourth down passes. The defense plays lights out all day, and the Bulldogs save one here in Fayetteville, 28-21.
David, you can call it a hangover. You can say they weren't ready to play. You can call it bad luck, but all of the above led to 14-0 Arkansas. This team and many teams before would have had an opportunity to fold. They did not. They showed a lot of character. And then this Bulldog wide receiving core that has really struggled with injuries this year. And it's a group that really lacks a real bell cow, a go-to guy, Fred Ross guy. But down the stretch, you had two guys, a redshirt freshman, Reggie Todd, making the game-time touchdown, and then a sophomore, Dedrick Thomas, making the game-winning touchdown. Certainly big news for that personnel group.
You mentioned bad luck. There was a lot of that today. Some of it just pure fluke. I mean, I know I tweeted in pregame that maybe instead of fielding punts, they should just play block and not try to catch it because the wind was so gusty in here. Well, sure enough, a short punt turns into a disaster for the Bulldogs because it runs off a Bulldog player's back. Arkansas uses the break. 3 plays later, to their credit, they took advantage and scored. Then they get the fluke touchdown off a strip and fumble in the end zone. That's just a bad protection play. Give them credit defensively. Arkansas's third touchdown comes on about as bizarre a play as you can come, where State strips the ball, and then Trey Brown makes a kick that your kid's soccer team would be proud of. It could have discovered. State doesn't fall out any time. Arkansas gets set up on the 1 yard line. 21. I never call points cheap because points are hard however you get it. Arkansas got some fluke points on a team that didn't have a lot of confidence, and they played hard, and they thought they were fixing to knock off the number 16 team in the country.
I think Bulldog fans probably felt that way too. There were a lot of people you could tell social media that it just didn't feel like the Dogs' day. You know, you have some bad things that happen, David. You mentioned, when those kind of things are happening, even some Arkansas media in the booth were kind of getting a little bit giddy, thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a big game," because so many weird things are bouncing Arkansas's way. Mm-hmm. But when it came down to it, when the game was on the line, Mississippi State, Nick Fitzgerald, Harris Williams, that big offensive line, stepped up and took over the ball game and had the better of it down the stretch, scoring the game's last 14 points and winning the ball game and really not leaving much time for anything other than really a desperation. You're kind of a fire drill type play.
We'll come back to the offense in a minute. Let's just talk about the great job Todd Grantham's defense did all day. I think Arkansas was, 3 of 11 on third downs, 0 of 2 on fourth downs, including that fourth down decision to go for it at the 50-yard line. I can't blame Arkansas a bit for trying. They had nothing to lose, a coach on the hot seat, a chance to maybe get in position with a very good kicker to maybe try to win the game in regulation. You can't blame them for trying, but you can credit Todd Grantham's defense for stepping up and making plays all day.
You can, David, and Montez Sweat's play was just tremendous today. 2.5 sacks. They split the third one, but he was a disruptive performance all day long. It seemed Gary Green out there playing well. Gary, the victim of a couple of holds, some called, some not. But I really thought the Bulldog interior played exceptionally well. You mentioned Trey Brown earlier, Grant Harris, some of those guys. Jeffrey Simmons, being Jeffrey Simmons as always. Des Harris, not available today, but I thought the Bulldog backers stepped up and really fit gaps and were tough to run against. And that's really what this kind of gives you a glimpse into the future, David. It's going to be Willie Gay, Leo Lewis, those guys out there. And those were the guys down the stretch that really made plays when State absolutely had to have them.
Yeah, let's give Errol Thompson credit, too, because he had to step in for Des Harris. And Harris is the quarterback of the defense. Errol, a second-year guy, is able to go out there, take on the responsibility with a lot of help from a lot of great players, sure. But somebody had to be air traffic controller on that defense, and he did a solid job back there. And State really did not give up a lot of big runs, except for scrambles by Austin Allen. Credit the kid for being super tough because he's not 100% healthy. Other than that, Arkansas's ground game just did not hurt the Bulldogs much.
Arkansas's most explosive offensive play, David, was a 33-yard run by Williams that was a Trey Brown kick that was recovered. Mm-hmm. That's Arkansas's longest play from scrimmage, a play that the Bulldog defense made for him. And not to pick on Jonathan Abram, we've all seen it on social media. If he falls on the football, the game is probably over a little bit quicker. But that being said, that was an opportunity again for this defense to break. They did not. The offense came back and found just enough plays. And Reggie Todd, we've seen Dan Mullen call up that deep post pattern to him several times this year and haven't been able to connect and didn't connect today. But you run the double move and get him wide open. It was just really a matter of him catching the football. A great throw by Nick Fitzgerald when Mississippi State had to have it.
Finishing up with the defensive side of the ball, the Bulldogs were not surprised when Arkansas went for it on 4th and 1. In fact, I think they were pretty excited because it was a chance to step up. Plus Arkansas had gone wildcat on 3rd down. They came back, tried a little trickery on 4th down as well. They just strung the play out, kept it to the short side of the field, a bunch of bodies there, and got the ball back. Then it was time for the offense to step up. Now, they'd already stepped up once. That play by Reggie Todd, it was not called in the huddle, but it's one of those typical reads that Dan Mullen's offense has. Nick Fitzgerald saw what he had to work with, and then Reggie made the great move on the hash marks and got his guy going the wrong way and was in the wide open. It was just a matter of getting the ball to him.
And Fitzgerald tells us that it's a play that Todd called. They ran it early in the ball game. It wasn't there. Reggie goes back and tells Nick, let's run it again. Nick goes, the head man. He says, let's do it. And lo and behold, that's a play that really there wasn't a big crowd here, David, but that play right there really kind of took a lot of the air out, not at the sideline, but in this stadium here. You really kind of had a feeling the Bulldogs were going to find a way to win. And it never really felt like State was in control of the game, even up until they took the final lead. When they go up 28-21 with 17 seconds left, that's the only time, if you're a person wearing maroon and white, you could even exhale. And as we were told earlier in the ball game, David, on the sidelines, is that there was some concern about Austin Allen being able to get the ball down the field. A lot of people have wondered, well, why would they have the fire drill play, the Stanford Cal play? And a lot of people just were concerned that Austin Allen, just coming back off a major shoulder injury, just didn't have it to get it down the field. But in the end, the Bulldogs find just enough plays, found one more play. And sometimes, as Dan Mullen has mentioned, that's been the difference. As we saw last week against Alabama, the Bulldogs one play away from winning. Today, they're one play on the positive side for a W.
Well, you mentioned not having it under control. Now, tell me, when's the last time State had an Arkansas game under control, even the ones they won? Never. It's always been one of these just crazy games, unpredictable, and a lot of it has to do with the fact, Steve, that it always follows the Alabama game, or practically always. There's just that hangover effect, and we talked about that this week. The Bulldogs shook off that hangover just in time. The conditions weren't great. Windy, footing wasn't terrific. Nick Fitzgerald kind of said it was okay, but other guys we talked to said no, it was a hard field, slick. Yep. You could see they were having trouble getting dig off the line. Let's take Jordan Thomas. Yes, he had a bad drop in the end zone, but he also didn't get off the line quite as quickly as he normally would on good footing. Otherwise, that's an easy touchdown. He got open earlier in the game for another touchdown that State couldn't hold the block on. So there were so many plays State had for the making. They didn't make them. But the bigger point is they could have let that get to them, rattle them, and say it's just not our day. Instead, they kept on going, and now those warm weather bowl hopes remain alive at 8-3 with a 4-3 SEC record.
And David, it's one of those situations too where you think about last week where State played perhaps its best football of the year in stretches. They didn't play well today, but that's the measure of a great team is you find a way to win when you don't have the full complement of your offensive weapons and you don't have a situation where you're out there finding some rhythm offensively. It was a herky-jerky deal all day, but State found a way. And State was without some major players today, and it looks like State should have everybody back other than Gabe Miles for the Egg Bowl, which comes on Thursday, which will be here before you know it. It's a ball game that we've been talking about since last year. It's been our year to brag, and so if Bulldog fans want that to continue, they need to show up Thursday and be ready to go.
Yeah, well, we keep putting that plug in all week. The Bulldogs are heading immediately back. In fact, they should be getting close to the airport by now and flying on back. I talked to Dan Mullen afterwards. We turned off all the microphones and said, well, are you going home tonight? I said, no, he's going to be in the office. Megan Mullen came and said, yes, he will be away all evening as he and the staff get to work on it. We had a chance to walk off the field with Coach Todd Grantham. His mind had already turned ahead to the Egg Bowl as well because they know they're fixing to face a challenge because they're going to – Ole Miss can look at this Arkansas tape and say, wow, if we sell out on max protect for our quarterback, we can win those one-on-one matchups down the field. The Bulldogs, by the same token, saw some things they can do in coverage. They should get some guys back healthy on offense. They got a healthy offensive line. It just sets up, Steve, as a classic Egg Bowl in so many ways. The Bulldogs are playing for that 9th victory and a chance to possibly go to the Citrus Bowl. Ole Miss is all they've got left now is to play for spoiler, but in the Egg Bowl, spoiler is a lot of motivation.
Well, not to mention, nothing would make Ole Miss happier than to beat Mississippi State, especially at home. And that's just life and times and a bit of rivalry. But that's the bottom line is this is their bowl game. They're going to come out. They're going to throw everything they got at stake, gadget plays, trick plays, whatever they have, State's got to be ready for it. And I think that's the reason Dan Mullen's not even going to spend a lot of time celebrating this victory. He mentioned they're already grading film and they're flying back on a different plane than the team just so they can go ahead and begin game planning for Ole Miss. That'll be a big part of things as we prepare for Thursday.
That is a point that Steve makes. The coaching staff is going back separately from the team. I guess that means Bracky's in charge of shepherding the team back there. So all the coaches are working on things, getting ready. So anyway, they're getting ready, so you fans get ready as well. Thursday evening, 6:30. Long-range forecast looks good. We'll keep updating you this week. As far as media availability, we'll tip you off on that. Mississippi State will have one day, Monday, where media can talk to players. We can get them, Coach Mullen and Nick Fitzgerald, Monday afternoon. They're going to try to cram some players in between 3 and 5 as they become available. Then State will have a late practice from about 6 to 8. And after that, we may get a few players. There'll be no access on Tuesday or Wednesday ahead of obviously the Thanksgiving, but more so getting ready for the Egg Bowl in that regard. So it's going to be an expedited week. But Bulldogs have been here before, and now it's their chance to seal off the regular season with that 9th victory, set up for that shot for the Citrus Bowl as we watch other results. In fact, we see Georgia, Kentucky playing above us now. Steve, I know you're heading right back to Starkville now. I'm staying here to write my story. The years are starting to take a toll on me, so I'm not going to try to drive it back this evening and dodge deer all the way back to Starkville, but we'll be back in town tomorrow. And, by the way, as we record this, Mississippi State basketball is tipping it off in Humphrey Coliseum with the expected debut of Abdul Adu to be specific. So, for all our crew from Gene's Page 24/7, Paul Jones and Robbie Falk back in Starkville taking care of the basketball, Mike Nemeth and Gene Swindoll are in Jackson right now covering the 3-game baseball series, and here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where Mississippi State wins 28-21, this is Steve Robertson and David Murray.